Screenwriters now are worried about AI taking over their jobs. More than 11,000 film and TV writers went out on strike this week, actually. The Writers Guild of America is leading the protest. And here to talk to me about AI's potential to replace certain jobs is Alexander de Ritter, co-founder of Inc. So, I've used programs like ChatGPT, and it does seem to me that writers potentially could be at some risk of being replaced. Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, that's right. However, the GPT that consumers are mostly familiar with does not really represent that big of a threat at this point. The version that is currently in alpha testing and has more limited access, well, that version provides much larger context length. And context length is where it's really all about. So, for example, if you would ask it to create a new episode of Friends, the GPT model may have encountered what Friends is, may have read a few scripts. However, what if you could load all of Friends episodes that were ever created into a context window, and it could literally understand every little fact and nuance of every relationship and style of communication that has ever been used in that show. So this is what we're talking about with potential displacement in content writing for brands and franchises.
So that GPT program that you're talking about that can understand context of a show is upcoming. It's not been released yet, right?
Yes. So today, to get access to GPT-4, you need to be a paying member of GPT, and that GPT-4 comes in an expanded context length. It expands the context 4x, 16x. The largest version of GPT-4 can process approximately 50 pages of context. However, that is not yet everything you might need for an entire franchise. You may need hundreds of pages. And so there are solutions in the works of transformer architectures that might have unlimited context windows in the future. And there are also going to be intermediate solutions with vector databases and memory that will also overcome that problem.
So it seems to me if we do reach that point, it seems like AI could just write the whole script. Are writers' jobs at risk then?
Yes, well, they are at risk, and people sometimes think about this not entirely in the right way. So let me reframe it. When we think, is our job at risk, we sometimes think, should an AI be capable of doing everything a human being can for our job to be at risk? And the answer is no. AI does not need to be that good to put a job at risk. All AI needs to do is make a human being 10 times more efficient at doing their job to put 9 of their colleagues' jobs at risk. And so if it accelerates a human being's job a factor of times to create faster, then a company, right, in a capitalist society will prioritize resources. And if we notice we don't need that many resources for that type of job, then yes, there is a job risk, even if the AI is individually not as capable as a human.
So then I'm predicting what might happen in the future, and correcting me if I'm wrong. When AI develops to a certain point, we won't need as many writers, let's say for the entertainment industry. We'll just need a couple instead of the amount that we have right now.
Yeah, that's right. And so I want to acknowledge that the AI technology has the potential to cause a lot of disruption, right? And so there's historical parallels for that, for example, with the Industrial Revolution. And we have seen that caused a lot of job displacement. But the tension here is really between uh, two different things. On the one hand, it is what the consumers want, and on the other hand, it is what is in the best interest of workers. So consumers typically rejoice at lower prices, higher quality, more precision, more choice. This is what we want. And so when it comes to the entertainment industry, artificial intelligence has the potential to give consumers better and more content than we have ever imagined possible. So I'm a big fan of Star Wars and Star Trek. Wouldn't it be amazing that I can create an episode that I just came up with, that I woke up with in my mind, and I want to live that episode? The screenplay and the video would kind of generate on the fly for me, and I can actually be part of that episode, perhaps in the metaverse. Now, this is not too far out. The Avengers director, the movie director, imagined that in talking to Epic Games, said that he expects in the next 2 years to have an AI generated blockbuster movie out in the cinemas. So it is not inconceivable to think that we're going to have such a future nearby. Having that from a consumer point of view is actually what we want. It's what consumers want. Now, at the same time, such technology would involve a lot of automation, and it will have an impact on jobs. And so this is basically where regulation and government frameworks come into play, because it is a balancing act throughout history where we had to balance the interests of what consumers wanted with the protections for the workers.
Now, I want to ask this question. So right now, it takes a lot of manpower, a lot of group discussions to come up with a script for an episode or for a script for a movie. I mean, if AI can do it instantly without this sort of discussion, I mean, the viewers, will they accept this kind of product where, they don't really know how the script came about? All they know is that AI created it. Is there a sense of doubt between the viewer and what they're getting?
Yeah, I think that is definitely possible, but I actually do not believe that is what the future looks like. Working with an artificial intelligence, even if it is a script writer, is actually a collaborative process. And so it might give you one script, and then you might say, you know what, I really don't think Darth Vader would say something like that. And it would say, oh, you know what, you're right. And you're like, maybe it should be more like this. And the AI can, with the collaboration of a human, can then update the script in exactly that area. And so it can be part of a multi-people team where multiple people have this collaborative interaction with AI. So I do not think that most of the blockbuster, high-ticket productions in either software or media or anything will be simply somebody pushing an AI script out in the ether. It will be a collaborative process, and ultimately, you can still think of artificial intelligence not as sentient. We are not there yet, by far not. You can think of it as a very advanced tool, and ultimately, we do not credit the works of great painters to the brand of their paintbrush or the paint they used. We credit it to their imagination and their direction. We credit and honor the orchestra conductor as much as the violin players that are part of it. And yes, so our orchestra will contain a number of AI instruments, but humans are still the orchestrators of it. Now, can one human make an orchestra conducting beautiful pieces of music with many less humans than the past? Yes. But this just also means that we have more entertainment, more content to choose from, and potentially new heights of human imagination.
All right, so we're talking about the entertainment industry, but I want to take a step back as well. Do you see any area where AI cannot replace humans? Is there a particular job that AI cannot replace? Because if we think about how robotics is developing, if we can put AI into robotics, I mean, the scope where AI could replace jobs becomes even greater. So I want your thoughts on, is there a one job where AI can absolutely not replace?
Well, I believe that AI has the potential to augment just about any job, but it cannot, at the current technology, cannot replace any human, right? And so there are definitely opportunities for worker displacement in almost every industry. And believe it or not, we have been using AI in our daily lives for many years now, right? We used to travel the roads with a map, and the person sitting next to you would have their map open and trying to navigate where to go. Um, this is just going to permeate every part of our lives. Our devices around us, the tools we use for our very human jobs will just get smarter and more useful. And so in that way, humans will be able to do more of what they do uniquely well, at a larger scale, needing less people to do the same task. And in that sense, yes, there is displacement opportunity in almost every job. However, at this time, for sure, it basically comes down to a more fundamental philosophical question of what it means to be human, and what is unique about us. Now, this is an ongoing discussion that has, philosophical and religious consequences, right? And so different people will approach this topic from their different viewpoints and religious beliefs as well. But ultimately, you can imagine that humans, for example, are really good at being caretakers of other biological animals, because we have a lot of similarities with them and we understand them uniquely well. And so, for example, when it comes to taking care of animals, when it comes to taking care of loving for other humans in a biological sense, I think that warmth and humanity will be very important. So jobs that continue to be in high demand are jobs that require a lot of empathy, like nursing and elderly, taking care of elders, or taking care of our youngest ones, and spending time with them. It is extremely important to form these bonds. Communication is not just verbal, and that is what this AI is doing. It's verbal communication. It's also nonverbal, and also, there's pheromone exchanges happening, and chemical exchanges happening that a robot or an AI cannot emulate. And there's, of course, there's things to be said about, the soul and human nature and our heart and our emotions that, at this time, we know robots and AIs are not sentient. They don't possess what people would assume is a human soul. So they cannot relate with you on such a profound level.
Yeah, I mean, the philosophical aspect of this is very interesting. Maybe we can discuss this in a future interview, but let me just ask you one more question. So let's say a high school student is graduating. They're searching for a career path in college. I just want your tips. With everything we talked about today, AI could be displacing some sort of jobs that could be wide-ranging. So what are your
Yes.
tips for someone who's pursuing a career path? What should they go into?
Yeah. So a well-known Wharton professor said that in a tweet that that will eventually figure out the impact on jobs and careers with all this AI, but that right now we don't know. That's what he said. However, I do have a few conclusions that I've arrived at, and I'll just share them briefly with you. I still believe it is valuable for a human being to specialize in a field and get really good at something, because it's the non-specialists that are more easily going to be displaced. And here's why. I think when in all my interactions with artificial intelligence, which is brilliant, I often found that it lacks a level of depth. And the skill in using AI to bring the best value out of it comes from the ability to ask the right questions. And this is very important, because the more you educate yourself in a topic, the higher quality your questions become. The higher quality your challenge to the AI becomes. And if you don't know how to ask questions to the AI or have critical thinking in evaluating what the AI represents back to you, you can't actually extract the most value out of it. So therefore, I would say train your ability to ask questions. Right? And this requires a rethinking of the education system, because teachers have to go through, this much material. They don't have time for a student to interrupt an entire class to just drill down on one topic with asking question and drilling deeper and deeper. But this is exactly what is needed in the future. Imagine this AI that knows all this stuff, but you can't just accept its conclusions at face value. You need to converse with it. So education should prioritize critical thinking, evaluation, and elevating in-depth knowledge on specific topics, so that students of today learn to ask the right questions and get the most value out of these systems.
Well, all right. Thank you so much today for this in-depth discussion, Alex. Pleasure having you on.
Glad to be here.